You know you've bought too many books when if you drop them, they would break your toes. Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is another book haul. The last book haul I posted was late February, and these are all the books that I have bought or received since then, and it's a concerning amount. I've only read 7 books this month, and this is way more than 7 books. I haven't counted yet, but it's a lot. I don't even know where to begin. There's just a big stack of books all over my floor. Starting off with the most recent books I have received, and that is the entire Paladin's Grace series by T. Kingfisher, and these were kindly sent to me by Orbit. These don't come out till early April, and yeah, I got some review copies, and I am so excited for this. These are also the new covers of the UK editions. It was never traditionally published in the UK, and the covers got these gorgeous redesigns. It's kind of like an old fantasy book style. I really like it. I think the borders are really cute and unique. I love the colours as well. They're very spring-like. The first book follows the main character Grace, and she is a perfumer, and when she's out in the woods looking for flowers, she gets attacked, but then a paladin comes along to save her, and then the two of them have to go on the run together, and it just sounds really interesting. I've heard great things about this book, and there's so many T. Kingfisher books I want to read. I've already read A Sorceress Comes to Call and loved that, so I'm really looking forward to this. I also got Funny Story by Emily Henry, and I have mixed feelings about this because I've only loved one Emily Henry book, and that was People We Meet on Vacation, and all the other ones were kind of just like 3 stars to me. But I have hope that I will enjoy this one as well. This follows 2 characters, and both of them have just been dumped, and their exes have both gotten together. And I think they start fake dating to get their exes back. So we'll see how I feel about this one. I also got Upon a Starlit Tide, and I have already read this book, and I have like more details on it on my last video, which was a reading vlog where I read this, and I'll also talk about it in my March wrap up. But I absolutely love this book and gave it 5 stars. It's definitely a new favourite of mine. This is a historical fantasy book, and it's set in the 1700s in France, and it is a Cinderella and Little Mermaid retelling, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the main character, and I loved the subtle magic that was in this book. And this is nearly 500 pages, and I was not bored for a single page. I loved it so much. I also got Chain Gang All Stars, which is a dystopian book set in America where prisoners have to fight to the death, basically, gladiator style, and it's live streamed in front of millions of people, which it sounds very Hunger Games esque. I've heard great reviews for this, and I'm so excited. I feel like it could be an intense one. I also got Slowfoot, which is a horror book, I'm pretty sure, and it's about this witch getting revenge, basically. Which sounds amazing. I've heard great things about lots of this author's books. He has like quite a few books that I want to check out, but this is like one of the most popular ones, so I thought I would start here. It's also like quite a big book, like it's not that long, but the pages are huge and the words fill the pages as well. It also has these like drawings throughout, which are quite creepy and I feel like could really add to the atmosphere of the story. I also got Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, and I've already read this book. It was in my February wrap up, and I gave it like 4.5 stars. I absolutely loved it. This is the third book in the Emily Wilde trilogy, which I read the entirety of in February. The first book's still my favourite, but I also did love this one. And this is an adult cozy fantasy trilogy where the main character is writing an encyclopedia of fairies because she's a fairy scholar, and she travels to Norway to learn more about a specific type of fae to write them in her encyclopedia. And yeah, I just love this series so much, and this cover is one of the prettiest covers I own. I also got Our Infinite Fates, which is a YA fantasy romance. The main characters basically live all these different lifetimes, and they are basically destined to fall in love with each other in each lifetime, but also kill each other, and then they have to start all over again, which sounds really unique and interesting. I have heard mixed reviews, so I'm a bit nervous because I have read a story like that before. I think it was called Meet Me in Another Life, and I found that book quite weird because in one lifetime they were like a couple, and then the other lifetime they were like father and daughter and brother and sister, so that was like weird. But I don't think this one's like this. I think they're just love interests throughout the entire thing. They're not related at any point. I also got Fable for the End of the World by Ava Reid, and this is a YA sapphic dystopian book, and it sounds very like the Hunger Games as well, where one of the characters is living in poverty, and her mother basically sacrifices her to this gauntlet where she's basically going to be on the run from an assassin. And then the other main character is the assassin, which sounds really interesting. I've loved so many of Ava Reid's books, particularly A Study in Drowning, which is actually right up there. So I have high hopes for this. I also got the Illumicrate edition of The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare, and this is the second book. The first book is Swordcatcher, and I absolutely loved that. I read it last year and gave it 5 stars. I just love Cassandra Clare's writing, and I feel like she did a really good job at moving from YA to adult books. It's a urban fantasy, or an urban inspired fantasy, and it's set in this city where basically magic isn't that common anymore, and the people that still practice magic are basically like second class citizens. They're not treated very well, and one of the main characters, Kel, he's basically been raised from a very young age to be essentially the prince's body double. So basically, whenever the prince has to give a speech to the public or something like that, it's actually Kel that does it in case he gets attacked or something, so the actual prince doesn't die. I absolutely loved the first book, and I've heard amazing things about the sequel. I've seen people say that the sequel's even better, so that fills me with a lot of hope, especially since it's very chunky. It's over 600 pages, and I definitely have to reread the first book before I read this because I can't remember anything that happened. Another sequel I bought this month was The Rebel Witch. This is a sequel to The Crimson Moth, which I read last March, and I will also have to reread that. Even though I do remember some bits, I don't remember all of it. But basically, it's a YA fantasy duology, so this is the last book in the series, and it's basically a romance between a witch and a witch hunter. So it's set in this fantasy world where the witches used to have all the power, but then they were overthrown, and basically it's now illegal to be a witch. And the main character, Gideon, hunts down witches, but the other main character, she pretends to be a debutante, but she actually is like a witch vigilante. She basically saves all the witches that are taken hostage and frees them. I've heard great things about this sequel as well, but I will have to reread the first book. I also bought Sunrise on the Reaping this month. This is a new Hunger Games book, and it's actually my current read as well. And this is another prequel, and it's about Haymitch and his games. And I'm really enjoying it so far. I definitely do prefer some other Hunger Games books I have read, but this is not my least favourite either. It's kind of in the middle for me so far, but I still have the last third left, which I hopefully will get done today, and I'll see what my final thoughts are then. I also got The Scorpion and the Night Blossom. This is by the same author as... I actually can't even remember the name of the book. It's something like Silver. That's going to really annoy me. 1 second. Song of Silver Flame Like Night. That is what it was. But this is by the same author. She has quite long book titles. But this is a start of a new fantasy series. I think it's a series. And it follows the main character, and her mum is really ill, and there's an opportunity in this world where you can basically compete in these immortality games where if you win them, you basically are granted immortality, a chance to escape death, and the main character decides to compete in them to save her mum. Honestly, I've not heard many things about this book, but I really enjoyed Song of Silver Flame Like Night, so hopefully I'll enjoy this one too. But yeah, those are all the books that I got in the past month or so. I'm going to count them because I actually have no idea how many that was. It's actually 15, which is more than double of the amount that I read in March, so that's quite concerning. But March isn't over yet, so I still have a chance to read a few more books. Not likely, it'll probably just be one more, the Hunger Games book, and then that's it. But yeah, my TBR is out of control, and I'm kind of on a book buying ban for April. I'm doing this challenge on my TikTok where I basically read 10 books before buying another, and I've already read 2 for that challenge so far, so hopefully I can keep going strong. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books or want to read any of them, and I hope you enjoyed this video.